The definition of conviction is a firmly held belief. Leadership looks different for each person, but every leader has strong convictions that pave the way for how they guide their people. Whether you're an experienced leader, a current leader, a novice leader, or a soon-to-be leader, this podcast is a must for you. Through this show, you will hear leaders share their convictions, the struggles they face, and the challenges they have overcome by staying true to their convictions. Leadership can be hard and it can be lonely. I aim to connect you with leaders who have walked the journey and want to show others the way. This is Beau Vincent, and you're listening to The Conviction of a Leader. What is up, everybody? This is Beau Vincent. Welcome back to The Conviction of a Leader. And I have an amazing guest, also friend, entrepreneur, business leader, a great leader that I know, Dave Williams. Welcome to The Conviction of a Leader. How are you today, buddy?
Hey, Paul, how are you? Thanks for having me, and it's my absolute pleasure to be here with you today.
Hey, man, I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and your busy day. And once I read your bio and talk a little bit about introducing you, people are going to understand why I'm thanking you so much for taking time to talk to me and our listeners today at The Conviction of a Leader. So, Dave, I know you started years ago. And I know a little bit of your story because we're friends and I've heard you speak at different conferences, but I know that you started out at Circuit City and Circuit City was not going well, actually went under. You were able to buy a bunch of, if not the whole entire store, to fund your first business, which was an insurance agency. Does that sound correct where I'm starting?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's
Okay.
pretty spot on.
Okay. And then it led to you starting a staffing, recruiting, and hiring company called Team Hired. And then it led to multiple other things. You since sold your original captive agency. You started another one, David J. Williams Insurance Agencies. You own multiple Airbnbs over how many states? Several states, right?
Yeah, multiple
Okay.
states we have. Then I think five different
That's why I
states.
was asking, because I know it's more than just New York, Florida. It's all over the place. You are,
Yeah, it's all up the East
yep.
Coast, so we got a place to stay everywhere we drive up the East Coast.
You started a reality show called Extreme Getaways. You are a strategic business partner in Ricochet, a software company for insurance agents. You also started an AI powered automation company called Jarvie with another co founder for hiring and training. And I'm hoping that Jarvie doesn't fully replace me as a coach and a consultant someday, but you never know. I got to be part of the change, not
I don't
fighting
think
it.
we ever do that.
And then you do purpose driven marketing, and you are married to Lauren. Probably one of the most important things that I want to make sure I mention before I talk about the Fifth Degree Academy. But Lauren, you've been married for how many years now?
Yeah, 17 years.
17 years. That's amazing. You know what's crazy? I thought about this today. I'll be married 15 years this week and I'm glad that I remembered yesterday.
Very cool. Congrats.
Thank you. So I have to make sure that I have all my plans lined up for my anniversary this weekend. But yeah, dummy me, waited till the last minute. But yeah, so Lauren, 17 years, and John David is your son, and he's 3 years old.
Yep, and
Awesome.
he's our little guy, a little miracle child. We were told we couldn't have kids. 10 years later, it took us, but here he was. So.
Wow. And then did you partner with anybody on Fifth Degree Academy? Or is this?
Yeah, partner with Tim Story. So that's kind of our
Oh
passion
yeah.
project to build an out to fill in the gaps of what's missing in school.
Wow.
I was a kid that was labeled in school, could have very easily went a different direction. My brother, the same thing. We both had great parents, but I went one way. Luckily, found my way out, but unfortunately for my brother, he's no longer with us. Went down the wrong path with the wrong people.
Sad.
Didn't have the right purpose in his life, and really, the purpose of this is to try to reach more Gary Williams before they get to that place. Help them discover their why, their passion, their purpose, so they can feel purposeful in life to get everything they want out of this world, because I believe everybody deserves that
Oh
opportunity.
man, so true. And I want to thank you for jumping on. David, you do a lot of great things. And you know what? Somebody used to tell me back in the day, and this reminds me when I read your bio of something that somebody used to tell me, Beau, you can't do everything. You got to pick one thing, just be great at it. And that was one of the worst advices I had got growing up was that, Beau, why do you want to do so many different things and be a jack of all trades? Why can't you just focus and do one thing? Dave, I would tell you, you have a lot of things up in the air that you're balancing. How are you doing that and why?
Yeah, no, I would say, that, really, it's really about what it comes down to on your podcast when you talk about it. It's leadership,
Hmm.
right? So it's being the right leader and coming into the company. Like, too many times I see too many entrepreneurs, too many business owners out there that their company can't stand alone without them.
Yeah,
So they have to be in the thick of everything. And, I would say to that person that's in that place, like, yeah, don't focus on more than one thing, because you're going to spread yourself so thin, and then everything could sink on you. But if you do it the right way, you come in, lead from the front, lead by example. What I like to do with every single company or organization is come in and earn the right to be the leader, earn the right to be the CEO.
right.
I think there's a precedent out there that, hey, we become business owners, that all of a sudden I'm the CEO, I'm the president, I'm the leader now. No, leadership is earned.
So
And I
true.
think it's just a problem in our society that you all of a sudden feel like you gain that title just out of authority versus earning that title.
Mm,
And what do I mean by earning it? I feel that you got to be in the trenches, you got to be leading from the front. And what I'll do as a philosophy for any new company, any existing company that needs it, is being that front person until I get somebody there that can take the helm of the ship, so to speak, when it comes to that particular department. So if it comes to building a sales team, like, I'm my own best salesperson, I'll bring one or two people alongside me, lead them until that person can stand on their own 2 feet at 60 to 70% of the level that I operate
mhm.
at. I'm never going to expect anybody to be me.
Right,
I'm the owner. I'm invested at a different level, but I'm trying to get somebody to be 60%. If I can get them to be 60%, I know that now that department within the organization can stand alone, it can operate alone, and I'll work my way around to every position in the organization. Just like if you join a company, you typically don't just get the CEO position out of the gate. You got to work your way up the ladder, and I believe there's a reason for that, because you have to understand the nuances of everything. How good is good? How bad is bad?
right,
How high is high? How low is low? What is the barometer? So when I set expectations with people, they're realistic expectations. I understand their problems. I know how to lead through those problems, and I understand the fine details and nuances of that position at a level that allows me to be a very effective leader.
right,
But if you haven't lived in that position before, it's incredibly hard to teach and train other people in that position.
right.
But then once I do that, make my way around the organization, now I've gotten to the place where I ultimately love to be, is the visionary, the operator. And now that organization is kind of standing on its own four
Mhm.
legs, and you can go on to the next thing, and it's cookie cutter, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, um, rinse and
I
repeat.
love it. You hit a couple things that resonate with me. One is, that because we're friends and we've talked a lot specifically about business and leadership, but that I line up so clearly and right in line with you when it comes to leadership, that actually in America specifically, we do get confused that leadership is not your authority title. Just because you are the manager, the office manager, whatever, that's just authority. Doesn't mean you're their leader. Because most of the time you
Yep.
go into those businesses, you'll find that one of the employees is actually the leader of that business because of the way that people freely go to them and decide to say, hey, Dave, I know you're not the manager, but I'd like to get your opinion on this. Or Dave, can you help me? I know you're not the manager, but could you help me? So there's always that person that is the leader, and it's not always the manager. But I know that leadership is freely given both ways. You have to earn it and they have to give it to you. Can't demand it, which I love that. And I started a leadership academy recently, and it's 3 steps, my 3 keys to leadership, which is so funny because this just more or less makes me feel like, wow, Beau, you're on a good path if you line up with people like Dave. So Dave, I believe you need to train people. I call it teach it, lead it, and expect it. So you said this. So if you go in and you train somebody, I call that teach it. That's the teach it phase. Phase two is the lead it phase. You need to be a good leader and model that behavior. You talked about you go in, you train them, you lead them. But then the third one is that you have to expect them. You know what the Bible said? Jesus used to say, now go and sin no more. Do what I taught you, essentially. So teach it, lead it, and then you expect them to do well, but also knowing that, hey, they're probably going to fail at some point. So have grace, forgiveness to pick them back up, train them, and lead them again. So Dave, good stuff there, man. I love
No,
love
and I
that.
love that you brought up the Bible, and I love that you brought up authority, because that leads me to, there's actually one of the best leadership books I think anybody can read is the Bible. If you read any of the best-selling New York Times leadership books from the secular world, um, every single one of the principles, almost in every leadership book that you're going to find, are biblical principles. So to give you an example, in Matthew 20:25 through 28, Jesus tells his disciples that leaders should not exercise authority over people. Instead, whoever wants to become great must lower himself to be a servant. Leaders realize that serving others is the only way to lead with a pure heart, free of pride and arrogance. And there's wisdom in the Bible, I can tell you. There's hundreds of other leadership passages and principles in there that can really serve people well. Um, in the oldest book in
I
history, in the Bible.
totally agree. And I love that continue to bring that up and add advice from the word because
And there's another one too, like Corinthians 3:12 through 13 offers one of the best Bible verses about leadership. The guidance here calls for kindness, compassion, patience, humility, and gentleness, all wonderful qualities of a good leader. Forgiveness is a component as well.
so
So,
cool.
I mean, if you just go in there, there's so much wisdom in the Bible that really all these books as a collective are driven off of Proverbs and biblical
So true,
principles.
man. And I used to hear leaders get up there and talk about leadership, and I'm like, did they rob the Bible? Do they not know it's from the Bible? So I love that we're connecting that for all the listeners today because it's true. A lot of people ask me, hey Beau, what kind of books do you read? And I'm like, I don't read a lot of books. I don't. I'm being very honest. When I have time to read, I should read the Bible. That's what I always say. So, and I give them parts and I will listen and read books beyond that. But I'm not a guy who's reading a book a week. I'll be honest. And I don't lie to people. But what I do is I love taking leadership courses, classes online, leadership courses that help grow me and, to be the best leader that I possibly can, because as great as I think I might be at leadership, I want to continue to be a student so that I continue to grow and lead others. So, hey, let's talk more about leadership. So your leadership journey
Yeah.
started out at Circuit City in a long time ago, or did it start out somewhere else before that?
Yeah, I would say really that's where I got my footing and my foundation was at Circuit City.
Yeah.
So kind of my long story short, I grew up as a kid. I was labeled, told I wasn't going to amount to much with being weak when it came to academics. Was told the same thing when it came to baseball. And I'd say one of the first leaders in my life that really taught me my main superpower that got to me where I am today is my dad.
Wow.
Um, when I was out there and I saw kids academically, things came easy to them, and I was labeled with this label that just didn't sit with me. I knew God didn't put me on this earth to be this almost person
Right.
that I was supposed to have an utmost life, but here I am struggling academically, and then labels can be powerful, right? My teachers are telling me,
Gosh.
Dave, unless you take up a trade with your hands, you're not going to amount to much in life. I love the game of baseball probably more than any other kid out there, but that didn't come easy to me either. And I'm seeing it come easy to every single other kid. But one day there was a pivotal moment in my life because I watched my dad. I mentioned my brother earlier,
Yeah.
earlier in the show here, went down the wrong path. My dad and my mom really took that to heart. They both are the hardest working people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
When that happened, they worked around the clock. My mom with her business, my dad with his two businesses. My dad would get up every single day, put gutters on houses in his gutter business, and he worked with the highest level of integrity, perfectionist, and he'd work all day on the job,
Wow.
and then would have a snow plowing business. So he'd be out in the
Jeez.
cold, out in the rain in Rochester, New York, putting gutters on houses, operating on next to no sleep, 7 days a week. And then by the time he was done there, it was late at night. It got dark out. He would start snow plowing. But he had in his contract, like, hey, at 2 inches, every 2 inches I'm going to plow. And there's rarely anybody that has that in there or they abide by it. But he was always a man of his word, a man of integrity. So he would snow plow, but by the time he got done with his 100 driveways, there was 2 inches on the ground again, so he'd have to start all over. And I remember going in the dark hours of the night more often than I can, than I can think of,
Wow.
and just operating on no sleep, just to afford the things he couldn't afford. And that work ethic, just I think observing it through osmosis, showed me a superpower that I could balance the scales. So I started just doing modeling after my dad and showing up at a different level. So when it came to academics, yeah, to get a C, it took me 10 times the effort and the work anybody else. But slowly I closed the gap and superseded a lot of those kids. When it came to baseball, I had to put in 10x the work and outwork everybody in a room at just this relentless level. And eventually, that work ethic turned into competency, that turned into confidence,
Wow.
that led me to be one of the very few to go on to play college baseball. Then, of course, I hurt my arm, got my first job at Circuit City. I thought I was starting over, but little did I know I was just building off of that foundation because naturally that superpower was embedded into me so much
Right.
that I just showed up in my first sales job. Didn't know anything about sales, but I just outworked
Mm.
everybody in the store at Circuit City. Became one of the number one salesperson in the company, and then one of the youngest promoted store managers in history that led into my leadership
So
journey. And
crazy.
then my
Love
first
it.
mentor, O Zengen, was my district manager. Taught me a lot about leading people, a lot about servant
Oh
leadership,
yeah.
how to come in and really serve people. And then that gave me the foundation. I was climbing that corporate ladder. That gave me the foundation for my first business. And here I am, I'm climbing that corporate ladder thinking I'm in my own box, right? So I'm thinking I'm going to be a DM one
Right.
day, regional vice president. All of a sudden I wake up and life happened. And I couldn't walk. My ankles were swollen up, uh, inflammation, pain throughout my whole body that at a level I
Wow.
wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Had to go off of work on disability. Here I am facing labels again, but now at the front of my doctor saying I'm going to be off of work on disability for life.
Jeez.
Got to the 6 month mark where they couldn't hold my job anymore at Circuit City. And I had a decision to make, to live into those labels or step up as a leader and forced myself through the pain, get through the work. And that's exactly what I did. Got back in. Now I'm broke for not working for 6 months, still dealing with health challenges. About 2 months later, get back to work. Circuit City goes chapter 11, closes down all
Ah,
their stores.
I remember
Now
that
I'm broke, I'm jobless, I'm dealing with all these health issues. What do I do? Always been a big man of faith. That's a big part of
journey.
that's a big part of my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Prayed on it. Had a friend of the family in the insurance business, doing really well. First taste of passive income, reoccurring revenue. I was like, sign me up. If he can do it, I can
Right.
do it. But I just had to find the money, right? Because I was broke. And 2 weeks later, if it wasn't God's design, I don't know what it was. There was an insurance agency, same shopping mall, across from a DMV, shuts down, goes out of business.
Wow.
And I knew it wasn't a bad location.
Jeez.
You know what it's a lack of? It was a lack of
Leadership.
leadership. There was somebody in there that was on their phone all day long. They weren't putting in the work that I knew I could put in. They weren't leading from the front. I think they were down to no other employees because they weren't leading. It was just a one-man ship at that point. So they closed down. I was like, I've spoken into this existence. That's going to be my location. I just got to find the money. A few weeks later after that, liquidators come in and said, Dave, all the open merchandise, we got to get rid of, pennies in the dollar, whatever you could get. Light bulb goes off. I'm
Boom.
like, what if I made that incredibly easy on you? And I just bought up all the merchandise from every Circuit City store within 4 hours of me. They agreed, took the last 7 grand in my name out of my 401k, bought up about 70, 80 grand with electronics, arbitraged it online, eBay, sold it all, raised the capital I needed for my very first insurance
So
agency. And
awesome.
sure enough, I opened up in that same spot, hired 2 people, and one of my biggest goals before I did that, I wrote out a check for $1 million. And it wasn't about the money, but I knew if I could cash that check, I could create a different life. I could create a life that was beyond my labels. I could create a life that served my family, my community, and then give back to my heroes, my mom and dad, because I knew they didn't save for retirement. They did everything for me, and I knew it was my turn to step up as a man and be that guy that changed the trajectory, the financial trajectory of my family tree forever. So that's what that check meant. I framed it, had it up there with my unemployment card. I obsessed over it, looked at it every single day. And I showed up every single day, putting in 14, 16-hour days, pulling people out of line at the DMV. I didn't know what I was doing, but I figured it out very quickly. But I'll tell you, one of the best ways I've ever led my employees in my career was in that time frame, because I didn't know it at the time, but I was demonstrating the absolute best form of leadership that
Yeah.
anybody can do is by leading from the front, being in the trenches with your team. Had somebody on the left, had somebody on the right of me, and they saw me showing up like a maniac, acting as if somebody was trying to take it away from me 24 hours a day, because that was the reality. I had enough capital to last for 2 months unless I got revenue coming out of the gate. So sure enough, when I talked about that 60 to 70% number, very quickly they got up to 60% of the level that I was there. And now we had like a 3-man army where we were going to war together, became one of the top in the region, and then eventually scaled that company. $22 million reoccurring revenue, one of the top Allstate agencies in the country. I cashed that check. And then in one of the proudest moments of my life, I did it 6 months earlier to my goal. I wanted to do it by 35. I did it by 34 and a half.
Sweet.
Handed my parents the keys to their first brand new car, Cadillac, take care of all their bills. And not just 3 years ago, one of the proudest moments of my life, from cashing that check and the momentum of cashing that check, had the privilege to hand my mom and dad the keys to their dream retirement home in Sarasota,
I
Florida.
love
And I
that.
think it really all stemmed from leadership, right?
True.
Because if it wasn't for me leading from the front, my team wouldn't have done the work that they did. And I didn't get there alone. It took all of us as a
Yeah.
collective to get there together. And that kind of leads me into a real great way I like to articulate leadership. I learned this from a friend, mentor of mine. They call him Big Mike.
Yeah.
And, leadership, you have to lead your own ship. I'll
Yeah.
say that again. Leadership, you have to lead
Own
your own
ship.
ship. But you have to be careful of the last 4 letters, because if you don't have good partnerships, you don't have good friendships, you don't have good mentorships, it's not going to take you to the championship.
Ooh.
But all it takes is one wrong person on your boat to go into hardship. And you know what that does? It sinks your ship.
Ooh.
So leadership, I would say, is, that's the foundation. That's the bedrock of absolute everything. If you find yourself waking up in your company and you're leading from the back and you're sitting in the back and your team's doing all the work, man, you got it wrong. You got to be out there in the front, leading, leading from the front and doing everything that you expect your team to do, because your team will do as you do before you do as you say,
So
right? And
true.
I call that a shadow of a leader.
Yeah.
And I think all the people that are listening to this, they got to ask themselves, what shadow
Yeah.
are you casting in your business? And leadership just isn't about business too. When we're talking about leadership in your family, in your household, what's the
True.
shadow you're casting in your household when you're showing up for your family and you're leading by example? What's the shadow that you're casting in your business so you're leading by example for your team? When you're out in your community, how are you treating other people, and what is the shadow that you're casting out in your community, leading from the front? So leadership just doesn't stop in the confines of our own business, or maybe at a job that we're working, but leadership, I think, in all important elements to life, from health, wealth, um, our community, is it's the bedrock of everything.
Wow. So that's a lot to unpack. And I mean, I love it, but so many great nuggets within that. And if listeners out there, Dave really is a man of his word. And Dave, I've said this a lot, and I say it on stage. I've said it presenting on my podcast a lot, but I have the saying, your stage life can't be bigger than your real life. And I know that you are a man of your word, and what you say that you do, you actually do. Now, I also want to bring up one of my favorite verses too that you talked about from the Bible. The tongue can be used as a weapon to harm and destroy, or as a tool to build and heal. So my tongue has spoken things, in your tongue has spoken things that you've now seen come into existence, which is really amazing to see. Because also, there's listeners out there that you are your worst enemy. Your tongue is your worst enemy. What you say about yourself, your business, your employees, you harm and you're destroying yourself. So think about the positive side of what you think you could build and how you can heal with your tongue. So, Dave, you also talked about your father being a great leader, and he may not have had a authority title with people working below him, maybe one or two people, I'm guessing, with the gutter company. But when he's out plowing, it might have been just him. So that leadership that you saw, it was very intricate to your eventual leadership roles. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, without a doubt, 100%.
Is he somebody that's helped, shape you as a leader, his leadership and his examples as a father?
Yeah, no, I would definitely say so. And again, a lot of that was just being in his presence. A lot of it osmosis, watching how he operated, just gave me um, gave me that foundation and framework. And then I think beyond that, I was blessed to stumble across some of the right mentors in my life. The next mentor in my life, my baseball coach. Um, reinforced principles that my dad taught, like hard work beats talent when talent doesn't want to work
Yeah,
hard. And
so
I
true.
did the same thing when I was getting private baseball lessons, just showed up and outworked all the other kids, and didn't happen overnight. Like, it was a lot of days of, hey, I'm putting in a work at 10x the
Right.
level everybody else was, but had nowhere near the result that everybody else was getting. And that could get frustrating at times.
Oh yeah.
But I think what people got to remember, there's another mentor of mine, Tim Story,
Yes.
and he
Great
teaches
guy.
these parables. And parable that he teaches is having a farmer's mentality. And I think that's the same way when um, we're acting as leaders, because it doesn't happen overnight. But just like a leader, to become the best version of ourselves, it's kind of like having that farmer
Oh
mentality. What
yeah.
does a great farmer have to do? They got to first till their land, they got to plant their seed, and then they have to show up every single day. They got to fertilize and they got to water. And sometimes it could take weeks and months without seeing any result on the surface, because everything else happening below the surface. So what do you got to have is, you got to have faith in the consistency, trust the process, showing up every single day, that the compounded effect of doing that for day after day, week after week, month after month, sometimes a year or multiple years, depending on the crop you're trying to harvest, that's what's going to lead to a crop of abundance. And that's the exact same framework that leads to becoming a great leader. It doesn't happen overnight,
Yeah.
but you have to show up every single day. But what would happen if that farmer decided, hey, I don't feel like it today,
Mm.
I'm not going to water?
Yep.
You know what? I didn't water yesterday. The land doesn't look any different than it did the day before, because you see everything's happening below the surface. I'm going to take a week off. Well, that's the very thing. Just that one day, that one week kills the harvest.
So true.
Well, that's the same thing that kills your culture, kills the framework of leadership, and you being an effective leader in any capacity you look at
Yeah.
it.
You know what I love about that is that I actually believe very similar to you. That's why we are such good friends and I line up with you. But when a farmer tills the land, plants the seed, waters the field, puts in the hard work, right? He has a plan and he puts in hard work. But the harvest is not up to him, it's up to God. So we can work
Yep.
and we can till and we can do everything. The harvest will come from hard work, but sometimes you put in the hard work, you till, you seed, and it doesn't come, Dave. Have you ever had a point in your life or career that was tough where you were putting in all the hard work, all the hard effort? You were planting seeds, tilling, watering, blessing people, have an abundance mentality, and the harvest didn't come? Or have you been blessed to where the harvest has always showed up on God's time?
Yeah, no, I've definitely reached those moments, right, where the harvest was there, and then one day it wasn't,
Yeah,
and I kept trying to do the same things over and over again to get the same result that wasn't coming.
right,
And this is what I found as a lesson there that I didn't know at the time, but I wasn't willing to let go, let God, and close the door when it was time to close the door. I believe, and again, that's why I talk from this lens. I'm a big believer in faith. And I think most of our prayers are answered in the form of opportunities. I do believe in miracles, but God just doesn't do it for us at times. When we pray for what we're looking for, He serves us up an opportunity. And sometimes when we don't have the clarity, or we're focused on other things, um, we miss those opportunities, and we stay in the place that we're meant to close the door on.
right,
And I believe that eventually leads to that door being closed for us. And, I think there's many moments of those in my life where the door was closed for me. And I thought, oh, what is happening? Circuit City is one of them,
right,
right? I was thinking at the time, why are you doing all this for me? But I realized that, why are you doing all this to me?
right.
But I realized He was doing all this for me. And that was just
So,
my time.
yeah.
But every time that that's happened, it led to the next 10x size door that I walked
Yeah.
through, that evolved in the next best version of myself.
So true.
So it's,
It reminds me of the saying, when it feels like it's falling apart, it might actually be falling together. And sometimes we need that kick in the butt or that push to make a decision, right? How long do you think I mean, you can't even answer the question because it's all hypothetical, but if Circuit City didn't close at the time it closed, when would you have started your first business? Or would you have been a district manager or a
maybe,
regional and had the excuse of like, they kind of got the gold handcuffs on me, hard to leave now?
yeah, maybe never would have started it, right?
Yeah,
Because I didn't know what I didn't know. And here I am. I'm thinking I'm doing great in the confines of my own box, and there's nothing wrong with
right.
that. But, um, I think I wanted more out of life, and God wanted more out of life for me too. And luckily for me, I gained the clarity to see that and was able to step into it. And I think that's another thing that's our job as a leader, right? It's about seeing the potential in other people that they don't see in
So
themselves,
true.
and helping them gain clarity to reach their true potential. How many people have you ever seen inside of your organization like they're operating at 40%
Oh,
capacity,
yeah.
right? But a lot of times it's easy to let them be and let them live because we're afraid we're going to lose them. We're afraid to micromanage them.
Right.
We're afraid to push them. So, but at the other side of that token, I believe all those things that you're afraid of are actually going to come to fruition because you're not leading them, you're not stretching them. So it might not happen today, but it's inevitable that eventually that person's going to reach a point. Well, I'm not going anywhere here, and that's what's leading to a lot of turnover
Oh, yeah.
in organizations.
So true.
So one of the ways we always led is aligning the goals of our team with our own goals and understanding them and helping them get to where they want to go. Even forgetting my own goals. Like, let's help everybody on the team get to where they want to go, because I know if I can do that, I'll never have to worry about where I'm going, because it's always going to take me there. So one of the things that we love to do is do vision boards with our team, where everybody writes down, hey, what are some of your personal goals? What are your professional goals? What are your goals when it comes to your faith? And we'd really find out. And I don't want you to just throw fluff on a paper. Don't give me a paper that's got a Lambo on it or unrealistic goals, right? I want to really know what are your goals and the why behind it. And most people don't understand like their purpose in this world and their passion and their why. And I think going through that exercise, you can help them gain clarity. Well, what's my purpose? What's my passion?
Right.
What gets me fired up when I get out of bed? And if, hey, I want to have a more reliable car for my family, so I stop breaking down on the road. My family's in this crammed 2-bedroom apartment, and we really need a 4-bedroom house. I want to send my kids to college, but I can't afford it, or give them continuing education, right? And then on the professional side, one of the things that they might want to do as a leader is be in your seat.
Mm,
So we would always do that vision board, give them clarity,
right.
and ask them, "Are you serious about those goals?" Well, if the answer is yes, then do I have your permission to hold you accountable at a different level above and beyond your pay grade in effort to help you get to those goals? And more times than not, they'll always say yes. And we're like, well, that's my duty as a leader now going forward, is to make sure that you're not living below your potential, to reach your full potential and reach where you are. So now, if from the insurance agency perspective, right, if we're looking at it through that lens, they're not making the dials, they're not making the quotes, they're not doing the things that they need to be. It's not a conversation about the number. You know what the conversation is about? Hey, you see that board that you have up there? See the picture of your family? Is that fair to them
Oh,
that you decided not to
it's a
show up
gut
today?
check, right? Yeah.
Is that fair to them that they have to wait another day, another week, another year to not live into that house and still stay crammed in that 2-bedroom apartment? Is it fair to you, and is it fair to them that it's going to take you another year to get your name on the door because you're not showing up? And you got to be here anyways, 8 hours in a day. Why not be the best version of yourself 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, and imagine what the compounded effect of that's going to do. Now that's a different conversation, and it's really tough to argue with that type of logic. And you're not leading with a number that they don't have buy-in on. You're leading with their purpose, their why, and you can't argue with that, right? So that was one of the biggest ways that we would always get our people to go. And we had so many people that stuck with us in our agency 7 years, 6 years, that some of them started as telemarketers, went on to own their own agency
Wow.
because of that framework. And followed the process.
Which is great. And I know that you have a abundance mentality, and we've talked a lot about this, but like have an abundance mentality that bleeds into your staff because of the way that you take care and you lead them. And then it leads to them have an abundance mentality, not just with their team, but also at home and outside of work. So I think you and I would agree, but I definitely agree that business leaders and owners that put people first, servant leadership, have abundance mentality, but also help their team find their fulfillment and purpose in life through working alongside of you and with you. I believe that changes the world. One business, one person at a time. If you want to change the world, be a better business leader, be a better leader of people, be a better leader of your family, of your friends. So I know you know that. And in
Yep.
leadership, I tell people a lot. I meet with a lot of business owners and I've consulted over 50 business owners in the last 2 years. And I have some group training with over 30 agencies last year. And I have one right now for the leadership academy with 20 people we capped it at, and it was very exclusive, and I'm so thankful those that are in it. But the reason is that I say, David, and I think you already said this, you actually said the Allstate agency closed because of bad leadership. And I tell these people in the first call, hey, what if you're the problem? What if you're here today because you've realized that you're the problem? Your leadership is the problem, that you're lying to yourself, to your staff, and that maybe your leadership is the problem of why you can't recruit, retain people, why your sales aren't good, why people hate your culture, why your compensation plans aren't real good, why your career development just doesn't line up with what you say it does. So, what if you're the problem? So, Dave, at what
I
point?
think that's always the answer.
Yeah,
You're always the problem as a leader,
yes,
right? So, I mean, that would be, that was something my old mentor back in the day taught me at Circuit City. We give excuses like, hey, no matter what, it's about extreme ownership.
yes.
And the answer to your problem is always in the mirror when you walk by.
Oh,
Like, you're not leading through that problem. You're not solution oriented. You're not, the answer is always within. I think a lot of people know that, but they don't want to accept the reality of it because a lot of times it looks like hard work.
oh,
It
yeah.
looks like challenges, or you know what? They don't know the answer, and maybe they're not at the level where they have the humility to ask for help.
Mm.
And I think a big part of leadership is it's asking for help and having the humility, because the only reason I've got to know where I want to go is because I don't know everything and I'm far from somebody that knows everything. And I started getting good at asking for help and reaching out to the right people. And I think what you find is, there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to ask for help, but once you do, and you admit, I don't know what I don't know, that there's a flock of people out there that want to surround and support you and uplift you to get to where you want to go. And in the process, you learn what you don't know. So, asking for help is probably one of the most powerful things that you can do.
Man, that is so true. And I had this thought that I want to make sure I dive into a little bit more about your bio and about the companies that you work with. I think it would be a disservice for you, but also for the listeners, mostly to understand that David's involvement in the businesses that he leads. Dave, maybe give us a little overview or a little bit more in depth about the size, the type of companies that you've created and you're leading, and the impact that they're having through the customers and the people that work with them.
Yeah, no, I mean, we grew our first insurance agency to 22 million.
Woo.
Um, we got back into the insurance game in a different way, and probably more close to 40 million under management in
Sweet.
different ways. We went and started recruiting company, multiple seven-figure recruiting company that we did. And not all of them are successes either. A lot of it, what you don't see is all the failed ideas, the failed concepts that just didn't work. But one thing I can probably say is we just keep taking shots, keep coming up with ideas, keep taking
Yeah.
shots. The software company, Ricochet 360 helped scale that multiple seven figures. And then, on the real estate side, scaled 8 figures in real estate under ownership. And, a lot of it is it's the same framework. It didn't all happen overnight, but it was taking it kind of one silo at a time, following the principles that I, went over earlier in the call. And then once it's established, it's got its own foundation. It runs itself. I think the true test of leadership is, And I think this is kind of, to me, what conviction of a leader is when a leader um, leaves behind conviction at a level that the team around them can carry on that same conviction in their
So,
absence. Like once that
that was good.
happens, like I
Yeah.
know my job is done as a leader. But
Mm.
if I go away for a week on vacation or I take a month off and everything absolutely crumbles or fall apart, I didn't do my job as a leader. People are not convicted. They are not bought in at that point. I don't care how much they tell you or how much smoke they blow your way that they are bought in. If they were bought in, they would carry on your legacy. They would carry on your conviction in your
So,
absence all day, every day.
so true.
And I think that's the key to it. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at that, right? So there's failures, there's ebbs and flows of that. Like I'm always a student myself. I'm always trying to learn to become um, more knowledgeable
Right.
because I think that's a big part of leading other people. You can't continuously help people grow
Hmm.
unless you're consistently growing yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to place myself in a position of, being the student. Where can I learn, and how can I learn from other people so I can instill that wisdom and knowledge on the people beneath me.
Dude, you got me jazzed up talking about convictions of a leader. And I'll tell you, man,
Yeah,
it's so true. You struck a nerve in a good way with me. I work maybe 50% of the time that I work in the insurance agency. The other side is consulting, coaching, podcasting, leadership, development of other people, myself. But when I leave the agency, they typically are performing at a very, very high level. And when I really leave for extended periods of time, they really step it up. And more importantly, there is this mantra that I created when I first started insurance, and I wrote it in my business plan. It used to just be a fancy phrase or a mantra. And it actually came from my previous career, which is very similar to your previous career. I was in corporate retail, ran several different states, but back before that, I ran one store, one location, was a store manager in training. So, but I used to say, we love auto parts, but we love people more. We love shoes, but we love people more. When I started the insurance agency, I wrote in my business plan, hey, that was a good saying that I used to say. Why don't I write, we love insurance, but we love people more? And I will teach them what it means through the way that I lead. Okay, so how I lead by that is I show my staff, one, you are more important. I love insurance and I love what it provides for people. And I love that we get to sell it, that we get to offer this protection, layer of protection for people out there. But don't forget that I love you more than what you sell. And I think so many business leaders only like you for what you provide, and that is it. And when you no longer provide, they're done with you. Now, do people need to provide some value in a business? Absolutely. This isn't a charity, this isn't a nonprofit, but we love insurance, we love people more has bled into my staff. And you want to hear where I've had the biggest grins on my mouth with my business is that and on my face is that when I have tried to maybe push through somebody, I don't make the final call for any employees anymore because they work for one of my two leaders. So I don't put people on their team. I can recommend. I will do a first interview, jump in on an interview. I can recommend, but I will not force somebody on their team. They get to make that call. Well, I tried to do this a while back, tried to force somebody on one of their teams and try to convince them. You know what they said to me? Turned around and said, "How's that show by the red flags we're ignoring that we love insurance, we love people more?" And I was like, damn. And it just like it was just so amazing to see them take on the mantra that I've had, and it becomes part of their
yeah,
DNA,
absolutely.
right? And their DNA is all over my business now. So I just love that. Like it really like struck a nerve in a good way with me that so many people out there, they just don't hold on to their convictions. And
And
go ahead, Dave. Yeah, take that.
No, I was gonna say, I think to get to that level too, like you can't do it alone, right? It's asking for help, and it's again, I see that too much in leadership. It's like, hey, I'm the leader up here, everybody else is down here, but you need other leaders around you because you can't do everything alone, especially if you want to do big things. Big things can't be done alone. You need to ask for help. One of the best ways that we would do that, back to that vision board
Yeah,
exercise, right? Everybody would have different trajectories of where they want to go. And
right.
we made it all about them. I want to help you get to your goal. We might have somebody that are 5 years away from sitting in my seat,
Uh-huh.
putting their name on the door as a business owner. Some people might be 3 years away that are in a leadership position today. But now when I change the dialogue to, hey, helping you getting to that seat, helping you getting to that goal. I'm helping you up to the mountain, but in turn, I'm right behind you, right? And we're both going to get to the mountain together. I think by doing that, what I did, okay, if you want to be in my seat, I need you to come in and protect our culture.
Oh yeah.
I need you to come in and lead by example. When I'm not here, things cannot falter. These are my expectations. And if you can't do that, you are not ready to lead your own ship.
Oh, so
You're
true.
maybe ready to be a passenger. You're maybe ready to pick up an oar, but you are not ready to be at the helm. And I'm going to be away for a week, and I want you to prove to me that you have it in you. As a matter of fact, I got two leaders in here. I want both of you to prove to me that you have it in you where this doesn't skip a beat in my absence. And then what that allows you to do is align the goals of other people with your goals, and they help come in and instill that conviction within your own organization. So it's not all on your back because, again, you can't do big things alone.
Oh, so it's so good. So obviously, this is the conviction of a leader, and I talk a lot about the convictions that I hold. One of them, Dave, is I believe my conviction that I hold really close to me as a leader is that it's my job to lead other leaders, train them to be a greater leader than I in less time. So many other leaders want you to go through the same journey, same path that they took and be 15 years, just like it, or 18 years, like it took me to get here. I don't want somebody to take 18 years to get here. I want them to learn from my experiences. Are they going to have their own hardships that are different than mine? Yes, but I want to help them achieve things more. So, Dave, I want to turn the question on you. Are there any convictions that you hold really close to you? We've talked about a couple already that have led you through, your hard times and your good times.
Yeah, I'd say honestly, the biggest foundation there is faith,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's led me through the hard times and the good times. Because I think what that faith does when I think more times than not, society and the world teaches us when we're down to stay down. And then that's our existence, just all the way back to the labels my teachers made, the labels my doctors made. They were literally casting me a picture, not just, hey, Dave, you're in this place for the short term. Like you have a learning disability now, but you're going to do great things in life. No, that's going to carry with you the rest of your life. And they literally painted the trajectory of me for the rest of my life. Go to sit with my doctor. Yeah, you're sick now, Dave. You're dealing with all this. But he didn't just say now, and he didn't tell me that there was a place
Sure.
in time that I was going to get better. He told me, Dave, this is going to be the rest of your life. And I think there's powers in words, and there's power in how we use our tongue.
So,
To what you said
yeah.
earlier, and we got to be very aware of that, right? And I think they don't know what they don't know, right? Those challenges and those failures are really a part of the process. And a lot of people don't accept and realize that you can't grow without failure. You don't go to the gym and get a six pack and do a perfect rep every time, and it doesn't happen overnight. Like you're going to look sloppy. You're going to do things with inaccuracy. You're going to do things without the proper form. And it's not going to happen overnight, but what do you need to do? You got to go find a good mentor. You got to find a coach. You got to find a personal trainer that teaches you to form. It doesn't still happen overnight, but they teach you some shortcuts. Instead of taking 10 years, maybe you can do it in 10
Oh
months.
yeah.
Maybe you can do it in 2 years, right? And I think, that's what it's all about is just flipping and reversing those challenges and trying to get excited about them. Because more times than not, they cripple us. They cause people, our team members, including ourselves, to just sit in the setback.
So true.
But I think once we realize that and we step in with a lens of faith that is part of the process, and then we start using our own internal language that way, instead of getting upset about those challenges and sitting in setbacks, you can get excited about them because you start to realize patterns, right?
So
Patterns
true.
leave clues. Right on the side of every setback is usually the biggest comeback in their life. That's what Tim
Oh,
Storey says.
nice. I love
Right,
that.
right on the other side. So when you think that and you speak that to existence and you understand that every day, right on the side of my next setback is my biggest comeback. Well,
Cool.
I'm not so anxious about a setback anymore. I'm not so upset. I'm not so stressed about a setback. I'm actually kind of excited about it because I know on the other side of that is going to be the next best version of my life, the next best version of me, and that's going to be my home
So
run
different.
comeback that
Yeah.
I'm going to go out and just smash the cover off the ball. And then you start to think through a lens of excitement, and then that's another thing I think that paralyzes people from being good leaders too. Is anxiety,
Setbacks,
stress are a
anxiety.
real thing,
Yeah.
right? And they don't know how to manage it, and it all comes from a lack of understanding. Well, I don't know what I don't know. And then you mix that with fear, right? I think anytime somebody's in a place of fear, anxiousness, stress, There's a lack of wisdom there that they don't know what they don't know, but they're relying on the past and they're living in the past, and then they're worrying about the future. Instead, what they should be doing is living in the moment, in minutes and moments. And when you're in minutes and moments, and you're seeking out the right wisdom, the right mentors, and you're staying in the minutes and moments, I think that's what really leads to getting through those challenges and using them for what they are, the catalyst, the catapult,
Yeah,
to get to that next best version of ourselves.
absolutely. So, I, great stuff, man. So, you know, us going back and forth about this one thing has reminded me of this like Chinese philosopher. I don't know the name, and you've probably heard this because it's very, very, very popular. But watch your thoughts; they become your words. Watch your words; they become your actions. Your actions become your habits become your character, and your character becomes your destiny or who you are. And have you ever met somebody that had great character and they were just destined to be successful or destined to do great things?
Oh yeah, without a
It
doubt, right?
started up here, started with their thoughts. You know what's funny about our thoughts is that, Dave, I could tell you that you're doing great, but you're the only one who could decide if that's a valid statement. If I said to you,
Absolutely.
you're not doing great, you could agree with me or disagree. It doesn't matter what I say, actually. So we have to learn that you said this, it's our choice to decide am I going to agree with what the doctors say about me? Am I going to make that thought turn into my words of my excuses to, oh, guys, I have a problem that causes inflammation and pain in my body. I can't work out anymore. That's why I don't work out anymore. So, no, you changed the thought, you changed your words. They turned into actions of attempting to fix things that people told you you'd have to live with forever, that I'm sure you are living with, but you're overcoming on a daily basis, right?
Well, I think that's what whatever you want to call it. I mean, you're living in faith, law of attraction. Everybody talks about,
Yeah,
right? And I think that's a real thing, and I think there's science behind it, right?
I
That's why you
totally
see two
agree.
different people in the world. Why do some people feel like, oh man, that guy gets everything he wants, or that girl gets everything that they want? They just got the Midas touch. Everything they do, it turns to gold.
Yes.
But then you got some people, it's like it's the opposite of that, right? Everything that they do is negativity. Everything that they do is fail. Everything they do is demise. Well, what's the difference between those two people? And I think it's up here, right? We can either be our own enemy or we can be our own ally. And that's one of our biggest assets and resources. And there's actually science behind that too, that we
Yes.
can build neural pathways in our
Oh, yeah.
brain that serve us and build habits that serve us. And it's like the same way. Best reference to that is, when's the last time you bought a new car? What kind of car was it? What was the color?
Oh, it was a black car.
Black car.
Yeah.
And then
Black SUV
I'm willing to bet after you bought that black SUV, you started to see a lot of
everywhere.
those same SUVs on the road. It was almost like overnight, all
Mhm.
these SUVs. Well, that's something called your reticulating activating system. It's right here at the base of the skull. And what that does is processes information. You process 60,000 thoughts, whether you realize it or not, per day.
So
But
many.
you obviously can't process all those thoughts. A lot of them are happening subconsciously. But it's like the second that your brain realizes what's most important to you, what does it show you? It puts forefront in the front of your mind those most important thoughts and the things that it perceives as most important to you. So if you're somebody that's negative, 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 and there's
So true.
literally a problem. There's a problem to every solution, right? It's just the problem, the problem, the problem. Well, you're going to have more problems, and you're going to see the problem versus the solution. But
Yeah.
if you're optimistic, you're positive, you're going through a lens of faith, all these things, you're going to build those right neural pathways where you're solution oriented. You
Right.
find the way. The right people start to gravitate around you because that's part of it too. You become a magnet. Your thoughts become
Oh,
magnetic
yeah.
because like when you're a positive person, you're out there, somebody that's got the Midas touch
Yeah.
getting it done. Well, other people that got the Midas touch perceptibly and that are doing the same things, they got the same positive outlook. What do? They stick to you
Gravitate.
like glue. They're like magnets. And what that does is that builds community around you that propels you to where you want to go in life. But the latter also is reality. So if you're that negative person, guess what you're attracting?
Negative.
Other negative people around you that are reinforcing those belief systems, that are deeply rooting those belief systems. It's causing you to sit in your setback. And then you got all the people that are dragging you down versus lifting you up. So there's really something to be said about how you carry yourself, how you think, your mannerisms. It's not just woo woo. Oh my God, that guy's always got rose colored glasses on. No, it's just the
Yeah.
way to, that's the way to live. And it's the formula.
It's so true, man. I've been blessed, and so have you, to have a mother that really spoke these words that was a great Christian mother that really led me by example. But I also had a father that's had his warts, his problems, his so-called diseases with and his addictions and prison and just making bad decisions. And I had an opportunity, right? A fork in the road. Do I want to be more like this side or this side? And to be honest with you, I was 19 years old, sitting in a dorm room, had just failed out of college. My first semester, I was put on academic probation. The second semester, I failed out because I didn't hit the grades that I needed. But I was sitting there in a smoke covered room, and I can picture it like yesterday because I was smoking weed, smoking cigarettes in my door, in my room, the house that we rented with friends. And I had this thought like, this isn't who I want to be. Why am I this person? I never wanted to be this person. I dreamed and I envisioned in my head of being a business owner, being a great leader, making great decisions, growing things, not destroying things. Why have I destroyed my life, destroyed my college career, all these things? But remember, when it feels like it's falling apart, it might actually be falling together. What does Tim say? Your next setback could be your biggest what?
Comeback.
Comeback.
Yep.
Okay. So this felt like in my life as a 19-year-old person, think about it. I haven't went through a lot in my life. Like to me, failing out of college was a really big, deal to me. And I was like, maybe one of the biggest setbacks I've had as a person personally. So when that happened to me, I had to make this decision, right? To start over. And I started over in that dorm room. I said, I want to start over right now. I want to change who I am. I want to start making the decisions to be the person that I want to be, that I need to be, the dreams that God put on my heart and in my head. I want to be that person. So I had to start making decisions and have faith that I could be that person. And once I did, it was like, I'm not saying it was easy, and I had setbacks along the way. But God then brought in my wife, who then supported that growth. I didn't change for my wife, Dave. I changed before her, change for God, for myself. But then she encouraged that and continued to grow it, which is so important to have somebody like Lauren, like my wife, Kristen, as a backbone to this. How important has your wife been to your journey?
Oh, extremely important. I couldn't do it without her and couldn't do it with the right partner by your side. I
Yeah.
think, when you say there's power in partnerships, it's not just business partnerships, it's partnerships in the household. Because if you got misalignment in the household, right? You got somebody that's got opposite ambitions. You got somebody that's not supporting your dream. You got somebody that's not all in and you're linear, you're in it together. Well, what do you have? Instead of partnership, you have opposition. And how hard is it to get to where you want to go, where you got constant opposition because you're worrying about the opposition, the opposition, the opposition. So every time you try to get to the destination you want to go, if your partner's not in alignment, you hit the wall of opposition, and it finds you in the place where it's dividing your energy. When your energy is divided, yeah, you can still do good things, but I mean, the likelihood of doing big things or great things is going to be unlikely. But now, if you got unity instead of having opposition, now what you got is somebody running with you, supporting you, that's blocking and tackling. So you think about imagine you'll make this in football references, right? So imagine you're running down the field and your own teammates start opposing you, and you got the other team against you, and then your teammates that are supposed to be blocking and tackling for you, they're actually after you too, and you're the only guy running down the field or the only
Oh
girl running
man.
down the field. How many touchdowns are you going to score? Probably not too many. But how do you get into the Hall of Fame? It's like when you got a good
Team.
you got a good team
I
behind you,
mean,
right? And they're doing all the blocking and tackling, and they open up the lane for you to get into the end zone, and that's no different when it comes to relationships and our spouses and our partners, that we got to be there for one another. It's a two-way street.
yeah. Listen, you've accomplished some great things. I think God has really blessed you. And I love seeing friends like you. I celebrate you all the time, man. When you were out in
No, you
LA
too, brother.
recently,
Yeah.
you were out in LA recent. Was it LA? Where were you trying out and speaking for at what event were you just at?
Oh, we just did that
Tell the
down in
listeners.
Fort
Fort
Lauderdale, the
Lauderdale.
Great American Speak Off with Grant
That
Cardone.
was awesome, man. I'm always cheering you along. But what is ahead for you? What is something that you're currently pursuing, or maybe it's on your mind that you want to share with everybody? What's one of the next dreams, or maybe one of the businesses you're just starting? What's one of the next dreams that you are chasing and want to achieve?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, what's ahead for me kind of personally, and then, maybe in business,
Yeah.
so I'm always looking to be that next best version of myself.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to take credit for this line, but it's like, another mentor, Ed Milet.
Oh,
He
great
says
guy.
one day, I believe we're going to meet our makers, which I wholeheartedly believe.
Me
And
too.
we're going to be shown one of two things. We're going to be shown who we are and who we could have been.
Phew.
And,
Tough
when
to
we reach those
stomach.
pearly gates and they show me those two different people of, who's the potential of who I could have been and then who
Mm,
I was, I want to be as close to an identical twin of who I could have
so
been
true.
as possible, which always leaves me in a place of being a student, always learning, trying to be that best version of myself when it comes to health, my relationships, my faith, my business. And some people always ask, well, how do you always stay in a state of learning? What's the best way to do that? I just posted about that recently, and I attend a lot of networking events, conferences, masterminds, try to get in a lot of the right rooms with the right people,
Yeah.
but I do it with intention because I see a lot of other people doing that too. And that's why it's got the label of kind of woo woo, because everybody goes into these conferences and networking events for the dopamine hit. And you see the same people that religiously never take action, the non-action takers that are going to event and event and event, and 10 years later
Takers. Yeah.
you see them at the same events doing the same thing, not taking any action on it.
Hmm.
So I have a rule of two when it comes to elevating ourselves and putting ourselves in these rooms. And this is kind of how it works. Is I go to a networking event, a conference, a mastermind, mentor. I'm always seeking out two individuals that I can assist and elevate. That's about, for me, giving back and sharing knowledge, because I think there's something to be said about giving back to others. That if you give to enough other people, I'm a firm believer you're always going to have enough yourself. And it's something to be said about sharpening that sword when you're a teacher. Always look for two peers that I can collaborate with, individuals like yourself that are on a similar stage of the journey, that we can mutually support and uplift one another. Because again, you can't do great things alone. And then I'll aim to connect with two visionaries that are light years ahead of me, that maybe have insights, experiences that are just invaluable to help me grow to where I need to be. And then I'll set a goal to walk away with two ideas that I can implement in my health, in my wealth, in my relationships, and then that strengthen my faith. So every time I'm there, I'm at a student, but I'm taking, two ideas, not drinking out of a fire hose, but then how can I implement those two ideas to make me
Two ideas.
incrementally better?
Great
And
advice.
I tell that to everybody, is like, use the rule of two
Yeah.
to be very intentional at your events going forward. And, it can change the trajectory of your life. And if you're using the rule of two and it doesn't work, you're probably in the wrong room, and you got to open up a different door and get into the right room. So I'm always trying to be a better version of myself. And then, some of our goals too, and you want to be a better father, just continuously be a better husband, and be better in my fitness. 'Cause I'm not perfect at
Right.
all. Like, I might be doing
You're
perceptively
doing
big
good.
things over
Yeah.
here, but I'm far from perfect. I'm human, and I'm always just trying to shore up my shortfalls. And on the business side, some exciting ventures. We got Jarvie that's just released. It's been 2 years in
Oh yeah.
development. AI automation software that automates the hiring and training process. We still got a little ways to go with it, but I do believe once it's there, like, we're gonna really create some disruption. It's gonna be an exciting journey. And one that's real near and dear to my heart is our passion project, Fifth Degree Academy. Um, where we're going out there and
Yeah.
teaching
I love
kids
this
like
one.
I was
Love it.
when I was young,
Hmm.
the things they're not teaching enough in school: faith, family, freedom, finances, and fitness. And to me, it's all about legacy. It's all about, back to the leadership principle of the conviction of a leader, right?
Hmm.
If in your absence is that conviction presence, well, I want to have that so embedded into my legacy that everybody that was ever involved in that project, and that project in itself, that carries on with the conviction far after that I'm gone on this planet, that thousands of kids one day,
So
it's
cool.
small numbers now,
Yeah.
but I want the compounded effect of my efforts to turn into thousands one day, are getting the education and the knowledge that they deserve, because I think it's lacking in our school system. I think that's by design. We're not teaching kids emotional intelligence. We're not teaching kids about their health. As a matter of fact, it's counterintuitive. When you
Right.
talk about you get more of what you focus on, well, what's society pushing right now? Like, and this isn't about vanity and this isn't about shaming people, but look at Victoria's Secret is pushing, like, you don't see anybody fit anymore. Abercrombie, some of their models aren't fit anymore. Well, I'm not a believer of chasing that for vanity, but I do believe you should be in great shape and focus on
Yeah.
your health. But what is the message that we're sending to the youth of America? That it's okay love yourself, be accepting of yourself. Well, I don't think it's okay to love yourself and be accepting of yourself if it leads to diabetes and heart disease
Right.
in a life that's an almost life. And you could dissect that in almost every category, from financial literacy to um, everything. That it's almost like personal excellence is becoming like
Less
a taboo
desirable.
thing.
Yeah.
And I think, when you look at America, what's the ultimate rebellion? Personal
Oh,
excellence,
yeah.
showing up as the best version of ourselves. Because what do people do to leaders? They do as you do before they do as you say. Back to the
Yeah.
shadow of a leader. If we all show up, people will say, "Well, I don't want to talk about this going on in the world, or I don't want to talk about politics because it's not going to do anything." Well, no, you showing up as a leader, being the best version of yourself, is going to inspire other people to do it. And if enough of us join that army, like that's what's gonna make America great. There's not gonna be a political leader that does it. It's all up to us. And I think once everybody gets back to their roots and understand what really makes America truly great is, personal excellence being that ultimate rebellion and showing up as that best version of myself. So I'm on a mission to I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm on the mission to try to lead by example in that way and try to lead kids to that best version of themselves, help them discover their purpose and their why, and leave a legacy after me that's lasting.
Wow. Well, I love the fifth degree academy, and I want to thank you once again. You did ask me to jump on there at one point, and I really appreciate you giving me the
Yeah, no, you're
opportunity
phenomenal.
to speak to, kids of the next generation. And I want to offer again, man, if you ever need me, that is a cause that I want to be a part of and continue to be a part of. And I appreciate being one of the guests, one of the first guests in the fifth degree academy, and it
Yeah, no,
meant a lot.
absolutely. And we'll probably definitely I'll probably call in that favor because we're going to start doing pop-up events in schools. So as I'm traveling and my travel efforts around the country, trying to coordinate, kind of like this podcast
Yeah.
style events in schools, like having conversations that change the trajectory of thinking for our
So
kids, that
cool.
get them excited about learning.
What I love is, I'm gonna end here shortly, but what would happen if you preached what you practice? And you say that a lot. I say that, and we say it in two different words, right? You say it a little differently. I say it that way. I tell my staff and my leaders, and in this leadership academy, and when I'm teaching my kids, what if you could only preach what you actually practiced? So I couldn't tell you, hey man, you need to work out this way and eat this way if I didn't do that. I could only tell you, hey man, you should eat ice cream like I eat. You should eat this, right? And then you talked about the fifth degree academy. And I like to say this, there's only two ways, and this isn't my line. There's only two ways to influence human behavior. You can manipulate it or you can inspire it. And what you're doing with this next generation with fifth degree academy, you're educating and inspiring the next generation to make decisions to be a better version of themselves. And like you said, right now, the world teaches you this. Dave, you were created this way and you should just accept it, not try to change it, not try to be a better version of yourself. Just who you are today is okay. And that's all you're ever going to be. Just stay there and accept it and force yourself to accept it and everybody else around you to accept it. And I don't prescribe to that, and neither do you. So,
No, absolutely.
Dave,
And I think influence is one of the most powerful things we have. What great book, Robert Cialdini, Influence.
wow.
It's a great book for anyone to pick up, but it's influence. That's one of the most powerful things that we have, and a lot of people don't realize they have that power. And I think once we gain that superpower, it's kind of like one of those like Spider-Man or Batman shows, right? It's like the first
Yeah.
person gets their
Yeah.
superpower and then they help other people get it. And it's like, I think our duty as a leader to help other people discover the superpowers in this world. Because if enough of us, it doesn't have to be everybody, but imagine if 10 people were harnessing the true ultimate
Oh,
potential of themselves, showing up in the
crazy.
world in the lens of
Crazy good.
personal excellence, leading by example, man,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have too many problems. And I think most of our problems are coming from our lack thereof of leadership from our political leaders because they're not being leaders at all. And that wouldn't be a problem if we just took it into our own hands and all step up and
Man,
decided to lead.
so true. Dave, I always say that leadership and sales, to make a sale, people got to know you, like you, trust you. To have great leadership, people have to know your vision, like you, and trust you. And Dave, I knew you. I liked you. I've always trusted you. But today you delivered something. I believe that trust comes from value that is transferred. So you offered a lot of value to the listeners today. And through that, I would say not only do I trust you, but I hope the listeners have got to know you today, decided they liked you, and they trust you. Dave, when they got to that pinnacle of trust, how can they connect with you, follow your journey, connect with you, work with your businesses, work with you? Dave, can you give them how to connect
Yeah,
with you?
no, absolutely. You can go to bookdavidwilliams.com.
Okay.
That's bookdavidwilliams.com. That's got everything about me, mentorship. I offer all my businesses, everything about me, our fifth degree academy program. You can also follow me, Instagram at DW2426 or at David Williams Verified. And I think that's
Awesome,
probably the
man.
best way.
Well, hey, I just want to thank you again, not only for coming on and sharing, like I said, value and transferring that value to this podcast, which I love that, the conviction of a leader. But I also want to thank you for everything that you're doing out in the world and honestly just chasing your dreams. Every time I see you chase a new dream, I think about what other dreams have been laid on my heart that I need to go achieve. So thank you, Dave, for being an encouragement to me and a friend. And there's nothing like surrounding yourself with great people like Dave Williams. Dave, thank you for coming on the conviction of a leader.
No, and the sentiment exactly right back to you. Just super grateful for the friendship, grateful for you, and appreciative for you trusting me
Hey,
to come on your show, man.
listen,
And just keep up the great work and spreading good.
thank you, buddy. Hey, God bless you. Listen, if you're listening to this podcast, The Conviction of a Leader, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Dave wants to thank you too. If Dave made an impact, I want you to do me a favor. Like this episode, turn on the notifications for The Conviction of a Leader, but more importantly, share this episode on YouTube or whatever podcast platform that you're listening to. Share it with your friends, family, coworkers. If you had an impact, if it had an impact on you from this episode, share it with them so that they can have the same impact on their life. I want to thank you again for listening. Dave, have a good one, buddy.